Did something happen that you all just showed up out of the blue? One day, the family of my son Michael unexpectedly arrived at our house without any prior notice. I felt gloomy again that day because my son's family, who always visit without considering my schedule, came over. However, Michael and his family didn't seem to care at all. Far from it, they made demands like, "Bring out some snacks and drinks." I was thoroughly disappointed with their consistently selfish and rude behavior. "Can you leave after eating? I have things to do," I said reluctantly while serving tea and cookies, but there was no response from Michael and his family. Instead, they suddenly announced something outrageous without any preamble.
"We're moving into your house next week."
I panicked but desperately rejected the idea. That's impossible. Yet, Michael and his family wouldn't listen at all. Instead, I was shocked to hear them bossing me around and lost my words. That night, feeling at a loss, I decided to seek help from my friends. "My name is Sue. I've been living alone in my longtime home since my husband Keith passed away 5 years ago. Our meeting was through an arranged marriage. Since we both had a good first impression of each other, we went on several formal dates before smoothly moving on to marriage. I thought I could build a peaceful and warm family with my kind and considerate husband. I had such unfounded confidence because I had fallen in love with him. However, after getting married, I found him to be somewhat sloppy. This was especially true concerning his work. At the time, my husband was a taxi driver with a performance-based salary. So, if he didn't pick up customers and make sales, he wouldn't earn a cent. But initially, during the economic boom, I thought such worries were unnecessary. However, when the bubble economy has collapsed, everything changed. The customers who used to compete for taxis disappeared overnight, leading to days filled with silence. Naturally, his income dropped to less than half of what it used to be. Amidst this dire situation, where taxi drivers competed fiercely for customers, my husband spent his days napping in the car. He couldn't break away from the mindset of earning without hardship, nor did he feel a sense of crisis or attempt to adapt to changing times. Even though he had a base salary in addition to commission, it was only enough to cover the gas, far from sufficient for living expenses. Even when faced with the decision to make efforts to increase sales or to take a bold step and change jobs, my husband remained carefree.
"We have savings, and things will get better eventually. It's okay to keep going as we have been,"
he said, but such a day never came, and before we knew it, he had the lowest sales at the taxi company. Even my husband felt embarrassed about this situation and started to panic a bit. That said, his sloppy work attitude didn't change dramatically. But being at the bottom was also embarrassing. He wondered if there was a way to escape being the lowest while continuing to work comfortably as before. In a baffling move, he decided to dip into our savings to make it appear as if he had made sales. When I found out, I was so disappointed that I considered divorce. However, my husband earnestly reflected and promised to work seriously, so I put aside the idea of divorce. After that, though there were shaky moments, he worked hard for the family. I also worked, and together we supported our household, eventually buying our current home and paying off the mortgage. Even after my husband passed away, I have been able to continue living much as before. We had one son, Michael. As a young child, Michael was shy and clingy, but around adolescence, he rapidly became more independent and distant. It wouldn't have been so bad if that was all, but around the time he entered college, his behavior started to deteriorate, and he began repeatedly going out at night and staying out without permission. Fortunately, it seemed like he was attending college, but there appeared to be no sign of him working part-time. I was always worried about where his spending money was coming from, and my fears were confirmed. He had been using our retirement savings. I called Michael and my husband to confront them about the savings. Then Michael told me something outrageous.
Dad said it was okay to use it, right? He said with the savings. It's fine if my part-time job is just so-so, right?
I was speechless when I heard that. I knew my husband had always been irresponsible, but I never thought he would teach our child to be the same. Moreover, I was furious that he had unilaterally allowed our son to use our joint savings. I told my son he needed to repay the full amount, but my husband insisted that repayment was unnecessary because he had said it was okay to use. In the end, we agreed to waive the repayment on the condition that Michael would earn his own spending money in the future. Looking back, I wonder if being stricter at that time could have brightened our future. As college graduation approached, Michael struggled with job hunting, but ultimately failed. He ended up becoming a part-timer. Although there are cases where dedicated part-timers are recognized and become full-time employees, I always told Michael about the importance of sticking to one job seriously. But Michael would say,
I don't need such a part-time job.
And then he would quit soon after starting. During this time of job hopping, he met his future wife, Rachel. He was 2 years younger than him and a junior in college. Rachel, who had been sharing an apartment with a friend, seemed to be struggling with her plans after graduation. According to Michael, Rachel had a bad relationship with her parents and didn't want to return home after graduation. However, her roommate decided to move out after graduation, leaving Rachel worried about affording the rent. Michael, who had been Rachel's confidant for some time, proposed living together as soon as they started dating. She also accepted the offer, and they became a couple. And then, when Rachel's roommate situation ended, they decided to move in together. About a year later, they got married when they were expecting my granddaughter, Mary. I had concerns, but secretly hoped that getting married and having a child would make Michael more serious about work. However, his irresponsibility at work didn't change. He's tried to hold down a job a few times, supposedly for the sake of his children, but he always ends up getting fired for unauthorized absences or poor performance. Even so, recently he seems to be making ends meet with a job in construction. It seems Rachel is also working part-time at a supermarket, but either because of her poor customer service attitude or for some other reason, she's been switching jobs frequently. Concerning Mary, my granddaughter, I've noticed a lack of consideration for others, such as manners and moral behavior. which raises doubts about whether she's being properly disciplined. She often barges into my house, taking snacks from the pantry without asking, or eating gifts I bought for friends. But looking back, those were minor compared to what happened next. When Mary reached middle school, she attempted to take my late husband's keepsake without permission in order to cash it in for some pocket money. It was not just once, but several times. Fortunately, I noticed before anything was sold, but since then, I can't let my guard down around her. To make matters worse, Michael tells me,
"You're too strict, Mom. She's your adorable granddaughter. Go easy on her."
with no discipline or correction given to Mary whatsoever. Mary herself seems to believe she can get away with anything when it comes to me, as her thoughtless behavior only continues to escalate. Furthermore, Rachel, her mother, keeps finding excuses to come over, hoping to get free meals and snacks, paying no attention to manners or discipline. I've been patient because they are my only relatives, but to be honest, they've been nothing but trouble. During these frustrating days, I decided to have a mini reunion with friends I met in a college club, the first in over a decade. It's been so long, you guys. What? You became the editor-in-chief of a publishing house. That's impressive. Fitting for the head of our writers' club. My recent life, well, it's been so-so. How about you all? Conversations with trusted friends were so enjoyable that I lost track of time. It seemed each had faced various hardships, but from our conversations, it was clear they were now leading relatively peaceful lives. I felt a slight envy towards them, thinking they probably didn't have to deal with the rude behavior of relatives like I did. But then, one of my friends made a comment that took the situation in an unexpected direction. This friend, like me, had lost her husband and now lives alone in her own home. She has 3 children who are each living their own lives, some married and others enjoying their freedom. She confessed, "I don't want to depend on my children, but I'm feeling anxious about my declining physical strength each year." Moreover, she wants to give up her old, uncomfortable house, but lacks the courage and physical strength to live alone in a new place. And the senior residences nearby are too expensive for her to move into. She mentioned that there had been offers to live with her son's family, but she doesn't get along with her daughters-in-law and prefers not to live with them if possible. Then, one by one, other friends started to share their concerns about old age and grievances with their families. Suddenly, the reunion turned into a life advice session. I also took the opportunity to vent about my son and his family. Though the extent varied, I was inwardly relieved to find that everyone had similar worries. During the discussion, a single friend who is an editor suggested,
"Why don't we all live together?"
She mentioned that there's a trend of living in shared houses, where each household has its own space within one building, allowing for mutual support among friends, while maintaining personal privacy, more so than in traditional roommate situations. She also shared information from an article she had researched for a magazine feature, including the drawbacks of shared housing, maintenance costs, and the process and cost estimates for purchasing such a property. The more we heard, the more appealing it became. I, too, strongly felt that I would rather spend a peaceful old age with friends I get along with than continue being disrupted by my troublesome son and his wife. The others felt the same. As a result, the initiator, myself, and 2 other widowed friends agreed to live in a shared house. Admittedly, it still felt like a fantasy at the time, as finding a suitable property seemed daunting. However, a few months after the reunion, the friend who proposed the idea found the perfect property. It was a house with a garden in the city, sold at a bargain price because it didn't come with land ownership. As we were concerned that leaving behind the land would cause trouble later on, we quickly bought the house, and everything progressed smoothly as we all prepared to move in. I was busily sorting out my house for the move out. One day, out of the blue, Mary showed up at my house without any prior notice, just like she always does. Worried that she might complicate things if she learned about the move, I acted nonchalant, tidying up and washing dishes until she left.
Okay, I'm heading home now.
She said, unusually cheerful that day as she left. Seeing her behavior, I felt an indescribable fear and anxiety. I wondered if Mary had taken anything valuable, so I checked around the house. But nothing was missing. Just to be sure, I checked my wallet too, and everything was normal. I wonder if I've been mistaken. I fought, and for a moment, I felt relieved, but the next day's visit from my son and his family confirmed my suspicions. Did something happen that you all just showed up out of the blue? I was deeply disappointed with my son's family, who always came unannounced. But Michael and his family, unconcerned as ever, demanded snacks and thinking they were just trying to save on meal costs, I served some simple snacks and drinks and said, "Can you leave after eating? I have things to do." However, there was no response from Michael and his family. Instead, without any warning, they blurted out something shocking.
We're moving into your house next week.
What? Move here, and next week? That's impossible. I was bewildered by the sudden development. Then Mary pulled out the hidden documents about the shared house.
This is what I talked about yesterday. It's a really nice house, isn't it?
Ah, that is. Finally, I understood the abrupt actions of Michael and his family. I tried to refuse, but the 3 of them wouldn't listen at all, instead saying whatever they wanted.
Living with us is better than being an old lady all alone, right? You get to live with adorable Mary, and you'll be happy, Sue.
Exactly. We're like the ultimate filial children.
I'm taking the best room. Grandma only needs space for chores and laundry, right? From next week, we can dump everything on her, easy peasy.
Everything they said was shocking, but the most hurtful was realizing my granddaughter only saw me as a maid. Later, my son's family cheerfully left after taking money for food as a punishment for keeping secrets. That day, I forgot to eat or do anything else, consumed by thoughts of how to stop them from moving. But no good ideas came to mind. Desperate, I thought of consulting with my friends at home. Despite the short notice, all members of the share house gathered at my place the next day. So, that's the situation. It's embarrassing, but I feel like I can't do anything on my own anymore. It was humiliating to expose my family's shame, but my friends warmly said, "Thank you for sharing with us." They condemned my unreasonable children and suggested I move to the share house as soon as possible, offering their full support. Thank you all so much. Friends really are the treasure of life. The next day, I hurried with the move. Since the share house was furnished, I only had 3 boxes of personal belongings. Thanks to that, I managed to move into the share house just 3 days after discussing it with my friends, also getting rid of unwanted items in the process. By emptying the house, I ensured I never had to return to my old home again. Thanks to this, I no longer had to worry about bumping into Michael's family. This quick response was possible due to the help of my friends. Not only did they assist with the move, but their families and acquaintances took care of transporting belongings and handling the sale of unwanted items. Even friends who didn't join the shared house helped out. I was deeply grateful for meeting these friends and felt it more than ever at that moment. Having moved in early, I spent my days cleaning the shared house, organizing supplies, and inviting the friend who helped but didn't move in, showing my gratitude. In the evenings, I enjoyed tea in the communal area, contemplating life with my new housemates. I can't wait to live with everyone. Every day was peaceful and fulfilling. One day, I found many missed calls from Rachel on my phone. I had left my phone at home while going shopping at the supermarket. Oh, that's right, it was today. As I remembered why Rachel was calling, seeing the date on my phone screen, she called again. Hello.
Oh. Sue, not answering the phone, what's the meaning of this? What is all this? I don't understand.
Rachel sounded panicked over the phone, hardly saying anything, but I don't understand.
Turn the speaker on. Hey, what's going on here? Explain properly.
Michael, cutting into the conversation, was yelling furiously. Imagining the two of them in such a state, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Ah, you figured it out.
What are you laughing at? Explain now. Where is our house?
The house, I had it demolished the other day.
What? You're kidding, right? Why?
Why, I always intended to sell the house and the land, didn't I? That's why I refused to live together. With that, Michael fell silent. By that time, the family home had already been demolished and turned into an empty lot. The day I moved into the share house, a friend who helped me move asked me this.
What will you do with the house?
I'm thinking of consulting with a realtor to decide. I replied, but my friend suggested demolishing it would be better, mainly because of my son's family's unreasonable behavior. My friend thought that even if I wasn't there, if the house remained, they would likely move in uninvited, which would complicate the sale of the property later. To prevent that, the best solution was to demolish it immediately. Moreover, my friend's husband was in the demolition business and could start as soon as the next day. Having sold the unwanted items in the house and having some money, I quickly accepted my friend's offer and decided to demolish the old family home. So I managed to give my selfish and insensitive son's family a taste of their own medicine.
Intending to sell it. So, what happens to us now?
Yeah. We've already canceled our apartment lease. Where are we supposed to live now?
I don't know about that. Why don't you talk to the landlord and see if you can move back into your apartment?
That's impossible, of course.
I hate it too. Everyone at the old place avoided me, and I'm banned from all the stores there, so I don't want to go back.
I was inwardly shocked by Mary's statement. It seems that Mary's arrogant behavior wasn't limited to just my home. To sum up her complaints, it seems she was displaying her usual selfish behavior not only at friends' houses, but also at restaurants. Without any sign of remorse or awareness of the trouble she caused, feeling cornered due to the cold reception she received. At that time, when her family decided to move, she ended up transferring schools. For her, it's an unexpected chance for a fresh start, and she seems adamant about not going back to her previous home or school. Rachel also shared her inability to return to their former home, apparently causing financial issues frequently at the local supermarket. She was not only problematic as an employee, but also as a customer, leading to her being banned, just like Mary. Because of that, Rachel was complaining about having to use an expensive online grocery service or having to travel to the neighboring town for shopping. Though they said they had canceled their apartment lease, it turned out they were almost evicted due to failing to pay the rent. The more I heard, the more pathetic the story became, leaving me at a loss for words.
Why would you sell it if you were going to renovate? That doesn't make sense.
Renovate? You said anything about renovating?
Mary did. When I heard about it, I assumed you were turning it into a home with rentals. That would mean we, as family, should live there, right? But you plan to sell, which really makes no sense to me.
Oh, so that's what this was about. I thought something was off. With Michael's explanation, my lingering questions were finally answered. At the same time, I was reminded once again of the selfishness of my son's family. Just figure it out yourselves, I said and hung up the phone. This truly meant I could sever ties with my son and his family. I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders, a sense of relief. However, a few days later, somehow Michael and his family found the shared house and showed up. I thought it best not to let them in, so I locked all the doors and resisted desperately.
Hey, open up. It's your fault we don't have a home, so you should give us this one. Besides, it's a waste for an old person to have such a nice house.
Michael and his family were intimidating, ringing the doorbell repeatedly and banging on the door. My hands shaking, I managed to call the police. Minutes later, the police arrived at the shared house, and Michael and his family left as if fleeing. I managed to get through today, but I was sure they would return tomorrow. Thinking this, I reported the situation to my friends. Two of them mentioned they had family members who were police officers, firefighters, and members of the armed forces, and they would consult them. Starting the next day, cops from the nearby police department started coming by to check on the share house. Additionally, after one friend moved in earlier than planned, men from the fire department and the armed force began patrolling the area and offering security advice. When Michael and his family tried to approach the house again, they left without saying anything upon seeing the men. Since then, I never saw Michael and his family again. Originally, they had planned to take over the shared house before my friends moved in. However, they were unable to execute their plan because of the regular visits by the beefy men and police officers. Meanwhile, Michael and his family, who had been using internet cafes as makeshift hotels, quickly ran out of money, frequently visiting the shared house to plan their takeover. Naturally, they weren't working. In desperation, they turned to the local government office, where they were offered the only available option, a small, poorly located public housing unit in the countryside. However, the housing unit is too small for a family to live in comfortably, and the transportation options are quite poor. They shouldn't be willing to accept such poorly conditioned property given their selfish nature, but they have nowhere else to live and no money. Moreover, they risked losing even that option if another applicant came forward. Stuck with no way forward or back, they eventually decided to move into the public housing. While the rent was negligible, other expenses weren't, and Michael's family, who had always relied on my finances and food, never improved their situation. With the school far away, Mary had to catch an early bus to get to class on time. But she couldn't cope with the hardship and became a problematic child, often skipping school or running away from home. On the other hand, in the shared house, the remaining two friends moved in, and our long-awaited life together began. Perhaps because of the ordeal with my son's family, our life together was surprisingly smooth and comfortable. Living with these strong allies, who had helped me through life's crises, became my greatest support. With a communal space available, we could invite friends who didn't live with us for tea parties, weekend gatherings, and plan trips, creating a stream of enjoyable activities. The absence of stress from my son and his family even allowed me to start writing novels again, something I hadn't done in years. This year, I turned 65. While I wouldn't call my past life unhappy, it was dominated by my husband and son. But now, I can spend my money and time on my life with my housemates. So, I converted all my inheritance into cash. And I plan to live freely and comfortably, using everything except for my retirement savings as I please.